Have you ever had that moment when you're alone with your thoughts and suddenly it hits you like a ton of bricks? You've been living a life that looks good on paper, but deep down, you know something's off. Maybe you've checked all the boxes: job, relationships, status. But there's this restless feeling, this gnawing inside that something's missing. And the worst part, you can't remember when it started or why it feels like you're just going through the motions. The Stoics warned us about this, and right now, your thoughts might be telling you that something isn't right, yet you keep putting it off, thinking you'll deal with it later. But let me ask you, what if later never comes? What if today is the moment you stop pretending and start asking yourself the questions that truly matter? These questions will not only challenge you, they'll push you to confront the reality of who you are, who you've become, and who you have the potential to be. If you're ready for that kind of awakening, consider subscribing. It's about committing to your own personal growth and self-discovery. Let's dive in and begin the journey of living a life of meaning, not just surviving it. 1. Am I living for myself or for others' approval? How many times this week have you said yes to something you didn't actually want to do? Maybe it was that extra project at work because you were worried about what people might think if you didn't. Or perhaps it's staying in a friendship that drains you because you're scared of the awkwardness of walking away. We all know that feeling, the pressure to meet others' expectations, to be what they want us to be. And the worst part? We often ignore our own needs in the process. We tell ourselves that we'll focus on our own happiness later, but later never comes. Marcus Aurelius nailed it when he said, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." It's a bitter truth, but one that holds so much power if we allow ourselves to fully hear it. Are you making decisions based on what truly makes you happy, or are you just playing the role others expect you to? Think about it. Every time you live for someone else's approval, you lose a little piece of yourself. It's not just about saying yes when you want to say no. It's about the long-term cost of pretending to be someone you're not. The truth is, when you stop living for the opinions of others, that's when you start living fully. You're allowed to say no to things that don't serve you. You're allowed to make choices that align with your true self. Don't let fear of judgment stop you from becoming the person you were meant to be. Ask yourself, whose approval are you living for? And more importantly, is it worth it to live a life that's not fully yours? This is where the real shift happens. The moment you choose your own path, free from the pressure of other people's expectations. That doesn't mean abandoning relationships or letting people down, but it does mean putting your own well-being first. It's about finding the courage to be authentic, even when it feels uncomfortable. And yes, it might ruffle a few feathers along the way, but that's part of the growth process. The next time you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, is this what I truly want, or is this what I think others want me to do? Now think about how much of your life you've been living on autopilot. You wake up, go through the motions, check the boxes, but in the back of your mind, there's this nagging feeling that something's off. You know you're capable of more. You've felt that spark inside you, that inner calling to pursue your passions, yet somehow you've convinced yourself that the timing isn't right, or you've told yourself that later will be the right time. But the problem with later is that it never arrives. Time slips by, and suddenly you realize you're not getting any younger. Life doesn't wait for you to get comfortable. It moves on, with or without you. And once you wake up to that reality, the question becomes, what are you waiting for? It's not about waiting for permission. You don't need anyone else to validate your desires or your dreams. You've already been given everything you need to create the life you want. But it all starts with choosing to live authentically, without constantly second-guessing yourself or worrying about what others will think. Your life is yours to shape, and it's time to stop letting external voices dictate your decisions. Every choice you make should be rooted in your values, your passions, and your vision for who you want to become. Think of the possibilities if you started to prioritize your own approval over anyone else's. You would stop making choices out of fear or obligation. You would begin to attract people who genuinely support you, not the version of you that exists to please them. You'd be able to make decisions that push you toward growth, not comfort. And ultimately, you'd live a life that reflects who you truly are, not who the world expects you to be. So here's the question. What's the price of not choosing yourself? It's more than just missed opportunities or feelings of dissatisfaction. It's the slow, painful erosion of your true self. The longer you ignore your inner voice, the quieter it gets, until one day, it's barely a whisper. But you can reverse that now. Start by listening to yourself. Start by acting in alignment with your authentic desires. It's your life. Take ownership of it. Choose you, choose growth, and most importantly, choose peace. Your future self will thank you for it. 2. What am I avoiding facing right now? There's that feeling, right? You know the one. That uncomfortable truth that keeps hanging around, always in the back of your mind, waiting for the moment when you'll finally confront it. You push it away, tell yourself you'll deal with it later, but later never seems to come. Instead, it just sits there, like a weight that slowly gets heavier, gnawing at you, growing harder to ignore. It could be something as small as a conversation you've been avoiding with a friend or family member, or something much larger, like a health issue you've been putting off addressing. Maybe it's that bad habit that you know is slowly eating away at your well-being, or a dream you've buried deep inside because it feels safer to stay where you are. We all do this. We convince ourselves that if we just avoid it long enough, it'll go away on its own. But the truth is, avoidance doesn't make it vanish. It just amplifies it. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that for a second. The stories we tell ourselves, the things we fear facing, are often far worse in our minds than they are in reality. We imagine the worst possible outcomes, build up the discomfort until it feels unbearable, but when we finally face the truth, it's rarely as bad as we thought. In fact, confronting it often brings a sense of relief, even if the process itself is painful. By ignoring the truth, we hold ourselves back. We create unnecessary tension in our minds, constantly carrying the burden of things unsaid or undone. This avoidance robs us of peace, keeping us stuck in a loop of anxiety and procrastination. What's worse is that every day you delay, the truth becomes more elusive, and the fear of confronting it grows stronger. The longer you avoid it, the more it begins to shape your actions, your decisions, and even your relationships. You start to make choices based on fear and avoidance, instead of living authentically. It's like you're walking around with a shadow trailing you, always there, quietly reminding you of what you haven't faced yet. So, ask yourself honestly, what are you avoiding right now? Is it a conversation that could clear the air and bring peace? Is it a decision that could unlock the next chapter of your life? Whatever it is, avoiding it only gives it more power over you. It's time to stop letting that shadow control you. The first step is simply acknowledging it, admitting that there's something you've been running from. It could be uncomfortable, even painful, but the longer you delay, the harder it gets. Taking that first step toward confronting it may feel like stepping into the unknown, but trust me, it's better than staying stuck in a place of uncertainty and fear. Once you face what you've been avoiding, you'll find that a huge weight is lifted off your shoulders. It's not just about the thing itself. It's about reclaiming your power and your peace of mind. You can't grow if you're constantly looking over your shoulder, afraid of what might be lurking there. Now, don't get me wrong. Facing the truth isn't always easy. It can sting, especially when it's something you've been avoiding for a long time. But the real pain comes from the avoidance, not the confrontation. When you finally take the plunge and deal with whatever it is, you'll find that the relief and freedom that come with it are worth far more than the temporary discomfort. You don't need to have everything figured out right away. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about moving from a place of avoidance to a place of action, taking control of the things that have been controlling you. The reality is, you're never going to have it all figured out, and you don't need to. But facing what you've been avoiding will give you clarity, a sense of ownership over your life. Whether it's a conversation you've been putting off or a change you've been resisting, the sooner you face it, the sooner you can move forward. And once you start, you'll notice that this pattern of avoidance begins to unravel. You'll realize that the only way to move forward is to confront what's been holding you back. There's power in the discomfort. There's freedom in the truth. So the next time that uncomfortable truth lingers, don't push it away. Embrace it, face it, and feel the weight lift as you finally move past it. You've got this. 3. Am I stuck in the past? How often do you find yourself replaying past mistakes, revisiting old failures, and wondering how things could have gone differently? Maybe it's that regret you carry from a relationship that didn't work out, or a job you passed on that could have been the turning point in your career. We all have those moments, times when we look back and think, what if I had done things differently? The truth is, the past only controls your future if you let it. Every time you make a decision based on past pain, every time you let old wounds dictate your actions, you're allowing that old story to write the present. But here's the kicker: the past is done. It's over. And yet, so many of us spend our days living as though we're still there, trapped in yesterday. There's an old saying that you can't drive forward if you keep looking in the rearview mirror. It's not just about avoiding distractions. It's about releasing the grip that past regrets have on us. You've probably heard the quote from Carl Jung, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Let that sink in for a second. What happened in your past doesn't define who you are now or who you're going to be. The only thing that can keep you stuck in the past is your refusal to move forward. You have the power to choose, and that choice begins with letting go of old stories that no longer serve you. Think about it. How much of your current life is shaped by past experiences? Maybe you're avoiding opportunities because of fear, based on that one time you tried something new and it didn't work out. Maybe you stay in unhealthy patterns of behavior, telling yourself, "This is just the way I am," when in reality, those patterns were formed by things you've experienced in the past. The problem is, if you keep letting those past experiences guide your choices today, you'll never break free from the cycle. You're not meant to live as a prisoner to what happened before. You're meant to create a life that's shaped by the choices you make today. You're probably already familiar with this, but let me remind you, no amount of overthinking or dwelling on what could have been will change the past. The only power it has is the power you give it. So what do you need to do? You need to break free. You need to start making decisions based on who you are right now, not who you were or what you experienced. The past is there to learn from, not to live in. It's time to leave behind the stories that you keep telling yourself and to embrace a new chapter. And yes, this might be uncomfortable at first. Letting go of old narratives can feel like you're losing part of yourself. But here's the truth. What you're really losing is the version of yourself that's stuck and holding on to things that aren't serving you anymore. Take a moment to ask yourself, Are you living in the past, or are you moving forward? What are you still holding on to that's keeping you from stepping into your future? Is it a mistake you made? A decision you regret? The relationships that have ended or the dreams that didn't work out? These things don't have to define your future unless you let them. The only way to move forward is to stop letting the past decide who you're going to be. Imagine how much lighter you would feel if you could finally let go of the weight of old regrets. What would it be like to make decisions based on where you want to go rather than where you've been? What if you could look at challenges as opportunities to grow rather than as reminders of past failures? The freedom that comes with releasing the past is incredible. It's like suddenly being able to breathe deeply after holding your breath for far too long. So here's the question. What are you going to do with the time and space you've freed up by letting go of the past? The choice is yours. Every day is an opportunity to move forward, to create new memories, to redefine who you are and who you want to become. The past doesn't have to control your future unless you let it. Stop looking in the rearview mirror and start driving forward with purpose, with intention, and with the courage to create the life you deserve. 4. Who am I becoming right now? Every single day, without even realizing it, you're becoming someone. Not the person you were 5 years ago, not the ideal version of yourself you daydream about becoming someday, but the exact version that your choices, habits, and thoughts are shaping right now. The truth is, we're all in motion, constantly shifting towards something, and that direction is being carved out by the little things. How you speak to others when you're frustrated, what you do with your time when no one's watching, what you say yes to, even when you know you should say no. It's all adding up, slowly but surely, like drops of water shaping stone. Most people don't see it happening. They're not aware that they're drifting. They think staying the same is neutral. But there is no neutral. You're always becoming something, either more aligned with who you want to be or further away from it. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. You can't blame circumstances forever. You can't keep saying, "I'll change when life slows down," or "I'll fix this when I'm in a better place." Because the choices you're making in this exact season, this messy, chaotic, ordinary season, that's where your character is being built. That's where your future self is being born. Whether you're scrolling through distractions or reaching for discipline, you're casting votes for who you'll become tomorrow. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Let that land. It's not the promises or the intentions that define you. It's the consistent, often quiet actions you take daily. The hard truth is, most people talk about who they want to be, but few are actually living like it. So, stop for a second and take a look at your last week. What did you prioritize? Where did your energy go? Were your decisions led by growth or by comfort? It's easy to convince yourself that this is just a temporary phase, that soon you'll shift gears and start living more intentionally. But patterns don't wait for the perfect moment. They solidify, and before you know it, you've spent months or years heading in a direction you never consciously chose. It sneaks up on you. One excuse becomes two. One missed opportunity becomes a lifestyle. And the scary part is how normal it all starts to feel. You begin to believe that this version of you is permanent, when it's really just practiced. But the good news, the empowering truth, is that you can pivot, not in some grand dramatic way, but in small, quiet shifts. You can start choosing better thoughts, better actions, better responses. You can build habits that align with who you actually want to be, not just who you've settled into being. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious, about noticing what direction you're headed in before you've traveled too far. No matter how far off track you feel, you're always one decision away from realignment. That's the beauty of it. You're not stuck. You're just practiced in a particular rhythm, and rhythms can change. When you think about the person you're becoming, strip away all the noise, the job title, the social media presence, the external validations. Go deeper. Who are you in the quiet moments? Are you becoming more patient or more reactive, more honest or more performative? Are you growing in integrity or convenience? These aren't just traits, they're reflections of your current path. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start to recognize where the drift is happening. You begin to feel that tension between who you're acting like and who you're meant to be. That tension isn't something to avoid. It's the call to come home to yourself. It takes courage to face this honestly, to admit that maybe you've been moving in a direction that doesn't match your values. But that courage is the very thing that will set you free. Because once you own your trajectory, you get to own your transformation. And that's not just inspiring, it's deeply grounding. You're no longer reacting to life, you're responding with intention. You're not just becoming by accident, you're becoming by design. So don't wait for some wake-up call. This is the wake-up call, right here, right now. Who you are becoming is not a mystery. It's written in your habits, in your responses, in your quiet choices. Start shaping it on purpose. The future version of you is already watching. 5. Am I really living or just existing? It's easy to fall into the trap of just going through the motions. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. The routine can become so automatic that we don't even realize how much of our lives we're simply surviving instead of living. You know what I mean? We get caught up in the grind, focused on checking off the to-do lists, meeting deadlines, and keeping up with responsibilities. But somewhere along the way, something gets lost. We forget to check in with ourselves, to ask if we're really living or just existing. Now take a second to really think. When was the last time you felt alive? Not just content or satisfied, but truly alive. The kind of energy that makes you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. If you can't remember the last time you felt that way, then maybe it's time for a wake-up call. Life isn't meant to be lived on autopilot. Yet so many of us do it day after day, letting our dreams fade and our spark go dim. We wait for the right moment, the perfect circumstances, but the truth is, that moment rarely comes. The perfect time to start living is now. If you're waiting for the stars to align, you'll be waiting forever. There's a difference between just surviving and truly thriving. Surviving is getting through the day, ticking off your tasks, and moving on to the next. Thriving is engaging with life, taking risks, stepping into the unknown, and embracing the uncomfortable moments that push you to grow. But it's easy to settle into the comfort of survival, especially when you've convinced yourself that things will get better later. You know those things you keep putting off, saying, "I'll do it when I have more time, when things calm down, when I'm ready." Those are the very things that will make you feel alive, and yet they keep getting postponed. Why? Fear. Fear of failure. Fear of stepping outside your comfort zone. But fear isn't the problem, inaction is. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you'll miss out on life itself. The truth is, you're capable of so much more than you're allowing yourself to believe. You're not meant to be stuck in a routine that drains you. Life is supposed to challenge you, excite you, and sometimes even scare you. If you're not feeling that, then it's time to ask yourself some tough questions. What risks have you been avoiding? What part of your life have you been holding back from because it's uncomfortable or uncertain? What's the one thing you keep telling yourself you'll do someday, but someday never seems to come? If you're not feeling that sense of aliveness, then something needs to shift. It might be a small change at first, a new habit or mindset, but it has to come from a place of intentional living. Otherwise, years will pass, and you'll wake up one day wondering where it all went. Think about your dreams. The things you've always wanted to do but never got around to. Those what-if moments you've pushed aside because they felt too risky or impractical. What if you started pursuing them just a little at a time? What if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment and instead made today the day you started living with purpose, passion, and courage? It's not about making huge, dramatic changes overnight. It's about shifting your mindset, embracing the discomfort of growth, and taking action on what truly matters to you. It's about realizing that you don't have to settle for a life of quiet desperation. You can choose to thrive. You're not meant to go through life feeling stuck, numb, or like you're just passing time. You deserve to feel alive. You deserve to wake up each day excited to tackle new challenges, embrace new opportunities, and explore new possibilities. Stop settling for just surviving. Take the risks that make you uncomfortable, because those are the ones that'll bring you the most growth. Start today. Don't wait for tomorrow or next week or the perfect moment. There's no such thing. The only perfect time to start living is right now. You've got this. You are capable of so much more than you think. It's time to wake up, step up, and start living your life fully. 6. What am I tolerating that's slowly killing me? Take a moment and think about your life. Is there something that's draining you slowly? Maybe it's a toxic relationship you've been holding on to, even though you know deep down it's not healthy. Maybe it's a job that doesn't inspire you, but you stay because it's familiar or safe. Or maybe it's a series of small bad habits, those little compromises you make every day that add up over time, quietly eating away at your energy and happiness. We all tolerate things in our lives that we know aren't good for us. We tell ourselves it's easier to keep putting up with them than to face the discomfort of change. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Everything you tolerate teaches the world how to treat you. The longer you let something drain you, the more you signal to the world that it's acceptable, that you'll continue to accept less than what you truly deserve. Think about the things you've been tolerating. Maybe it's a friend who constantly takes from you but never gives back. Or it could be a boss who disrespects your time and effort. But you stay because you're afraid of the uncertainty of change. Whatever it is, it's a silent drain on your spirit, even if you don't realize it. What's more, this behavior doesn't just affect you internally. It impacts how others see you and treat you. When you tolerate disrespect, when you settle for less than you deserve, you're teaching others to do the same. You're teaching them that your time, your energy, and your value can be compromised. That's why it's so important to draw a line in the sand today. Decide what you will and won't accept. It's time to stop making excuses for the things that are hurting you, for the situations that are draining your energy, for the people who are taking advantage of your kindness. No more tolerating things that chip away at your happiness. You deserve better. You owe it to yourself to stand up and say, "This ends here." Imagine what your life could look like if you stopped tolerating the things that aren't serving you. What would it feel like to free yourself from toxic relationships, from jobs that drain your soul, from habits that hold you back? It's not about being perfect, and it's not about expecting everything to change overnight. It's about making small, courageous decisions every day that move you toward a life that reflects your worth. It's about realizing that you have the power to choose what you allow into your life. You don't have to stay in situations that diminish you. You don't have to continue giving your time and energy to things that drain your spirit. You can draw that line, and when you do, everything begins to shift. When you stop tolerating the things that are slowly killing your spirit, you open up space for something better. You make room for growth, for healthier relationships, for the pursuit of your true passions. And most importantly, you make room for yourself. You begin to recognize your own worth, and you stop allowing others or circumstances to define it. It's time to stop accepting less than you deserve. It's time to stop tolerating the things that are holding you back from the life you truly want. The first step is simple. Recognize what's draining you and make a decision to let it go. Draw your line in the sand today. You deserve more than just surviving. You deserve to thrive. 7. What would I do if fear wasn't holding me back? Fear is that invisible force that holds you back more than any external obstacle ever could. It's the quiet whisper that tells you you're not good enough, the voice in your head that convinces you to play small and stay safe. But here's the truth. Fear doesn't protect you. It doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you from doing the very things you want most in life. The things that would truly set your soul on fire. The things that would make you feel alive. Fear doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about keeping you in your comfort zone, where nothing changes and nothing grows. And that's exactly why you need to stop listening to it. Fear is the silent killer of your potential. When you think about your biggest goals and dreams, how often do you catch yourself backing away from them, not because they're impossible, but because you're scared? Scared of failing, scared of what others might think, scared of how it might all turn out. But think about it. What if you stopped letting fear dictate your actions? What if, for just one moment, you asked yourself, what would I do if fear wasn't holding me back? Would you start that business you've been dreaming about for years? Would you finally speak up for yourself in that relationship? Would you put yourself out there in a way you never have before? Carl Jung once said, "Fear is the greatest of all enemies, and to be free of it is the greatest gift." Think about that for a second. Freedom from fear. It's not just about doing brave things. It's about reclaiming your power, taking control of your life, and making the decisions that truly align with who you are. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It feeds on the unknown. It tells you that you're not prepared enough, that you don't have enough experience, or that you'll never be able to handle what's coming. But here's the thing, fear is a liar. It doesn't know what you're truly capable of. It doesn't know the strength you have inside of you. It only knows how to keep you small, how to make you doubt yourself. The only way to break free from fear is to take action, even when you feel scared. It's about doing things despite the fear. The more you face it, the less power it has over you. Each time you push through fear, you build confidence, and you start to see that the very thing you were afraid of wasn't as terrifying as it seemed. The worst thing you can do is let fear control your decisions. Every time you let it win, you're giving up on the life you could be living. Imagine for a second that fear didn't exist. Imagine how different your choices would be. Would you be stuck in the same job that drains you? Would you still be in a relationship that isn't serving you? Would you still be putting off that passion project you've been dreaming about? What would your life look like if fear didn't dictate your every move? When you start to act from a place of courage instead of fear, you begin to see new possibilities open up. You begin to take risks, make bold moves, and challenge yourself in ways that lead to growth. The only way to move forward is to confront fear head-on. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to take that first step. So, what would you do if fear wasn't in control? What dreams would you pursue if you didn't worry about failure, rejection, or the unknown? The truth is, fear isn't something to avoid. It's something to face. It's a signal that you're about to grow, about to step into a new level of your life. Every time you feel that fear rising up, it's a sign that you're on the edge of something great. But if you let it control you, you'll never know what could have been. It's time to stop hiding, stop shrinking, and stop letting fear make your decisions for you. You have everything inside of you to create the life you've always dreamed of. The only thing standing in your way is fear, and it's time to face it. 8. What permission am I waiting for? There's something that holds a lot of us back, something we don't even realize we're doing. We wait. We wait for the perfect moment. We wait for the right circumstances. We wait for permission. We tell ourselves, I'll take action when everything aligns, when I feel more ready, or when someone gives me the green light. But here's the thing. No one is coming to give you permission to live your life. No one is going to hand you a certificate that says, it's okay, go ahead and follow your dreams. You're the one in charge of your life. You're the one who decides when to act, when to start, when to move. The truth is, you've been waiting for approval, and it's been stopping you from stepping into your own power. Think about it for a moment. What is it that you've been putting off? That business idea? The creative project you've always dreamed of? Speaking up for yourself in situations where you've been quiet for far too long? What's been holding you back? Maybe you've convinced yourself that you need validation before you take that leap. Or maybe you're waiting for someone else to tell you, it's okay, go ahead. But the reality is that permission isn't coming. And even if it does, it's not going to feel as fulfilling as you think it will. The truth is, waiting for permission is a form of procrastination. It's a way of avoiding the discomfort of taking action and the uncertainty that comes with it. But here's the thing, that discomfort is where the magic happens. It's in those uncertain moments when you're not sure if you'll succeed or fail that you actually grow. When you stop waiting for permission, you stop putting limits on your potential. You stop telling yourself that you need someone else's approval to move forward. You start owning your decisions, your path, and your future. So, what are you waiting for? What's the reason you keep pushing your dreams aside, waiting for that one thing that's never going to come? It's time to stop waiting and start doing. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that you need to be perfectly ready, or that everything has to fall into place before you take the first step. But life doesn't work that way. The perfect moment will never come. There's always going to be something holding you back, whether it's fear, uncertainty, or the comfort of staying where you are. But you can't grow if you don't step outside your comfort zone. You can't create if you're constantly waiting for the right time. The best time to act is always now. And when you make that decision to act, when you stop waiting for permission, you'll find that the world opens up to you. The opportunities, the connections, the experiences, they're all waiting for you to take that first step. But that first step requires you to let go of the need for validation and trust that you already have everything inside you to move forward. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. There's no need to wait for someone to give you the green light. You're the boss of your life. The only permission you need is your own. So, stop waiting for approval, stop looking for the perfect moment, and take action now. You'll never feel fully ready, and that's okay. It's in the doing that you'll find your way. Start where you are, use what you have, and go after what you want. The road won't always be easy, and it won't always be clear, but it will be yours, and that's all that matters. So ask yourself again, what are you waiting for? What permission do you still think you need? The only answer that matters is that you already have it. Go for it. The life you're meant to live is waiting for you to take action. 9. Am I connecting with people or just collecting them? We live in an age where we're constantly surrounded by people through social media, in group chats, at work, at social events, and yet many of us feel lonelier than ever. You might have hundreds of people in your contacts list, a vast network of friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, but how many of them truly know you? How many of those relationships are deep, meaningful, and fulfilling? The truth is, real connection isn't about having a massive following or an endless list of people you can call friends. It's about the quality of the relationships, not the quantity. Yet, in today's world, it's easy to fall into the trap of collecting people like trophies, gathering followers, accepting friend requests, adding contacts to your phone, but never really letting anyone in. It's easy to mistake the appearance of connection for the real thing. We go through the motions, we like posts, we comment, we attend gatherings, but how many of those interactions leave us feeling seen and heard? When was the last time you had a conversation that went beyond the surface, something real, where you felt truly understood, where you shared not just the highlights, but the messy parts too? Genuine connection takes vulnerability, and vulnerability takes trust. It's about letting someone see the parts of you that you're not always proud of, the parts that make you human, the parts that can't be hidden behind a perfectly curated profile or an effortless smile. Only when you allow people into that space can real, meaningful relationships grow. The truth is, when you spread yourself too thin, trying to maintain dozens of shallow relationships, you're robbing yourself of the ability to form real connections. The more you focus on quantity, the less energy and time you have to invest in people who truly matter. You end up building relationships that are surface level at best, leaving you with more acquaintances than friends, more connections than confidants. And this isn't just a matter of time, it's also a matter of energy. Every person in your life demands something from you, your attention, your thoughts, your presence. But if you're constantly trying to please everyone, trying to stay in touch with everyone, and juggling endless connections, you'll find yourself drained, unable to give your best to anyone. Instead, it's time to rethink how you approach relationships. Rather than collecting contacts like badges of honor, start investing in the people who truly matter. These are the relationships that nourish you, the ones where both people give and take, where you're seen and understood. These relationships are built on trust, vulnerability, and a shared understanding that you're both showing up as your authentic selves. They take time and effort, but the payoff is invaluable. You don't need 100 acquaintances to feel fulfilled. A handful of deep, authentic relationships can bring more joy and meaning to your life than any number of superficial connections ever could. So, ask yourself, am I truly connecting with the people around me, or am I just collecting them? Are you spending time with those who genuinely add value to your life, or are you caught in the trap of trying to impress others and keep up appearances? It's time to be intentional about your relationships. Start focusing on the quality of the connections you make, and let go of the need to collect people for the sake of it. Invest in the ones who see you for who you truly are and appreciate you in all your complexity. By doing this, you'll start to feel more fulfilled, more seen, and more connected to the people who really matter. In the end, the depth of your relationships is far more important than the number of them. 10. What legacy am I creating right now? Every day, whether we realize it or not, we are all creating a legacy. It's not just about the things we do in the big moments, the grand gestures that might seem like they'll define us. The truth is, your legacy is being shaped right now, in this very moment. It's in the way you respond to challenges, the kindness you show others, and the quiet, everyday choices you make. Every action, every word is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life, creating a story that will be told about you long after you're gone. It's easy to think of legacy as something distant, something that only matters once you've reached the end of your life. But that couldn't be further from the truth. What you do today, right now, is what will echo in eternity. Marcus Aurelius understood this concept deeply when he said, "What we do now echoes in eternity." This isn't just a lofty idea, it's a reminder that our actions have weight, even in the smallest moments. Think about it. How you treat the people around you, how you spend your time, what you focus on, those things are all part of the legacy you're creating. And here's the kicker. Your legacy isn't just the big accomplishments or the things that make headlines. It's in the small, seemingly insignificant things that add up over time. It's in the way you listen when someone needs to talk, the way you show up for others, and the integrity you uphold when no one is watching. We often think of legacy as something we can control at the end of our lives, like leaving behind a great achievement or something people will remember us for. But the reality is, the legacy you're leaving is already unfolding. It's in your actions today. When you walk away from a conversation, do people feel better about themselves? When you're faced with a difficult situation, do you choose the high road or do you cut corners? These choices, though small, are building the story people will tell about you. And what's more, they're the story you'll tell yourself when you look back on your life. Will you be proud of the person you became, or will you wish you had done more with your time? It's easy to get distracted by the noise of life. We live in a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, demanding our attention, pushing us toward instant gratification and shallow goals. But when you zoom out, you realize that these distractions aren't what define you. It's how you choose to live in the quieter moments, how you invest in your relationships, how you treat yourself and others when no one is looking. These things build the foundation of a meaningful legacy. The legacy that matters isn't built on what you accomplish outwardly, but on the inner integrity that you cultivate every day. The kind of person you are when no one is watching is the true measure of your legacy. It's easy to get lost in the busyness of life and forget that our days are numbered. But when we remember that we are always leaving a mark, always building something with our actions, it changes everything. Suddenly, you realize that your legacy isn't something that happens after you die. It's happening right now, and every small choice you make is part of the bigger picture. So, take a step back and think about the legacy you're creating today. Is it the legacy you want? Are you building something that aligns with your values, something that will stand the test of time? If not, it's never too late to start making different choices. It's in your hands, in every moment, in every decision. Your legacy is the story people will tell about you long after you're gone. But more importantly, it's the story you'll tell yourself about who you were and how you lived. Make sure it's a story worth telling. Start today. Live intentionally. The way you live now is what will echo in eternity. 11. What am I afraid I'll regret not doing? Regret. It's a word we all know well, yet most of the time we associate it with the things we've failed at, the mistakes we made, the decisions that didn't pan out the way we hoped. But here's the thing, regret isn't actually about the things you failed at. It's about the things you didn't even try. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you talked yourself out of doing something because you were afraid of failing? How many opportunities have you passed up simply because you didn't have the courage to take that first step? The truth is, the things we regret most are the things we never even attempted, the risks we avoided, the dreams we buried, the chances we let slip away because we were too afraid of the outcome. Time moves fast, doesn't it? 1 minute you're planning for the future, and the next, it's here. And with each passing day, the opportunities to make a change, to take a chance, slip further away. Regret doesn't give second chances. Once time has passed, you can't go back and do things differently. You can't rewind and take the leap you hesitated to take. That's the harsh truth about regret. It's final. It's the things left undone, the risks left untried, the life you could have lived but didn't because you were too afraid to act. So ask yourself, what will I regret not doing? What is that one thing I keep telling myself I'll do someday? The problem with someday is that it never comes. You have today, right now, and that's all you're guaranteed. Imagine waking up one day, years from now, and realizing that the opportunity you once had is gone forever. What will you feel? Relief because you avoided the risk? Or regret because you didn't give yourself a chance to succeed? Every day you wait is another day you allow fear to control your decisions. Another day you choose safety over possibility. It's time to stop letting fear decide your future. It's time to take that first step, no matter how small it is, toward what you've been putting off. The things you've been avoiding, the risks, the chances, the hard conversations, are the very things that will shape your future. The things you didn't do will weigh on you far more than the things you tried, even if they didn't work out the way you hoped. Don't let fear of regret hold you back any longer. It's time to act. It's time to stop waiting for the perfect moment, because that moment will never come. The only perfect moment is the one you create by taking action, by stepping into the unknown and trusting that you'll figure it out along the way. It's time to make your dreams your reality, to take the risks you've been avoiding, and to face the fear that's been keeping you stuck. The longer you wait, the more regret you'll collect. But the sooner you act, the more you'll realize that the real treasure lies not in avoiding failure, but in daring to try, no matter the outcome. So, what's it going to be? Will you keep putting it off, or will you take action today? The choice is yours. Don't let regret be the story you tell later. Make today the day you start living without fear of what you didn't do. Because once you take that first step, the path ahead will be clearer than ever. 12. If today were my last day, would I be proud of how I lived it? If today were your last day, how would you feel about the life you've lived? Would you look back with pride, knowing you gave your best, made meaningful choices, and lived authentically? Or would you feel a wave of regret for the things left unsaid, the dreams left unpursued, and the moments you let slip by while waiting for something better to come along? This is the big question, the one we often avoid because deep down, we know that the answer might not always be what we want it to be. But the truth is, the only way to live fully is to face this question head-on. Life is unpredictable, and time moves faster than we realize. So, if today were your last day, would you be proud of how you spent it? Imagine waking up with the realization that today is your final day on Earth. Would you be content with how you've spent your time up until now? Would you be satisfied with the person you've become? Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." So when you think about this moment, ask yourself, am I living the life I truly want? Or am I simply going through the motions, waiting for a better moment to begin living? The reality is, we often spend our days distracted by things that don't truly matter, neglecting what's most important. We postpone our happiness, our passions, and our relationships, thinking we have more time. But time, as we know, is never guaranteed. So if today were your last day, would you feel good about the person you've been? Would you be proud of the decisions you've made and the way you've treated the people around you? Or would you wish for more time to do the things you've been putting off? Here's the challenge. Don't wait for a crisis, a wake-up call, or a tragedy to force you to reflect on your life. Start now. Live each day as if it could be your last, because in the grand scheme of things it might just be. It's time to reset, to refocus, and to align your actions with the life you want to create. Stop wasting time on things that drain you and start investing in what truly matters, your relationships, your passions, and your well-being. You don't need to have everything figured out, but you do need to take responsibility for how you live each day. Start small. Do the things that bring you joy, even if they're not productive or important by society's standards. Have the difficult conversations you've been avoiding. Take risks. Say no to the things that don't serve you, and yes to the things that light you up. Be the person you want to be today, not some distant version of yourself that exists only in the future. If today were your last day, would you be proud of the person you've become? The answer to that question should shape how you live every day. In the end, it's not about how much you accomplish or how many things you collect along the way. It's about the life you've lived, the impact you've made, and the love you've given. Life is short, and it's easy to forget that when we're caught up in the rush of daily responsibilities and external expectations. But when you stop and think about it, you realize how precious each day is. So ask yourself, how do I want to spend my time today? What can I do today that will make me feel proud of the person I am, of the choices I've made, and of the life I've created? Time is limited, so make it count. Live every day like it's your last, because one day it might be. Remember, every day is a chance to live the life you truly want. Don't wait for a wake-up call. Take action now, because time moves fast, and you deserve to live with no regrets. If this message resonated with you, check out one of the videos on the screen, and thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal. Your journey to a more intentional life starts today.